Article 250.52 of the National Electrical Code does not prohibit the use of ground rods as a grounding electrode system if there is a metal underground water piping system on the premises. Instead, it provides a selection of grounding electrode systems to choose from. The code offers 6 specific grounding electrode systems that are outlined in 250.52 AM-6. These include a metal underground water pipe, the metal frame of the building, a concrete encased electrode, a ground rod, a plate electrode, and a ring electrode. The selection of which grounding electrode system to implement is available without restrictions based on the presence of a metal underground water piping system. However, when choosing a metal underground water pipe as the grounding electrode system, it's important to ensure the piping is continuous and free from any insulating joints. This continuity is vital to facilitate an effective grounding path. Let's examine each of these grounding electrode systems in greater detail. Firstly, the metal underground water pipe is one option. If selected, it should be in direct contact with the earth for at least 10 feet or 3.0 meters, including any metal well casing bonded to the piping. The water pipe must be electrically continuous. Any insulating joints or sections must be bypassed or made electrically continuous using bonding jumpers. The point of connection of the grounding electrode conductor must be accessible. Secondly, the metal frame of the building can serve as a grounding electrode. This usually applies to larger structures where the metal framework is substantial and effectively grounded by being in direct contact with the earth. The metal frame must be connected to the grounding electrode conductor at an accessible location. It's essential to ensure that the metal frame is reliably grounded and not insulated from the earth. Thirdly, the concrete encased electrode, often called a UFA ground, involves a steel reinforcing bar or rod that is encased in concrete. The electrode must be at least 20 feet or 6.0 meters long and encased in at least 2 inches or 50 millimeters of concrete. The concrete must be in direct contact with the earth. This type of electrode is often installed during new construction. It provides an effective grounding path due to the large surface area in contact with the earth. Fourthly, a ground rod is a common choice. Ground rods must be at least 8 feet or 2.4 meters long and driven into the ground. The code specifies the material and diameter of the ground rod. Typically, ground rods are made of copper or copper-clad steel. If using multiple ground rods, they must be spaced at least 6 feet or 1.8 meters apart. The grounding electrode conductor must be connected to the ground rod using approved methods such as listed clamps or exothermic welding. Fifthly, a plate electrode is another option. Plate electrodes must have a surface area of at least 2 square feet or 0.186 square meters exposed to the surrounding earth. They are typically made of iron or steel and must be installed below the permanent moisture level. The plate must be buried vertically in the earth. The grounding electrode conductor is connected to the plate using approved methods. Sixthly, a ring electrode is a copper conductor that encircles the building or structure and is buried directly in the earth. The ring must be at least 20 feet or 6.0 meters long and buried at a depth of at least 30 inches or 762 millimeters. The grounding electrode conductor is connected to the ring at an accessible location. Choice of which grounding electrode system to use depends on several factors. These factors include soil conditions, local codes, and the type of electrical system being grounded. In some areas, the soil may be too rocky or sandy to effectively use ground rods or plate electrodes. In other areas, the local codes may require the use of a metal underground water pipe as the primary grounding electrode. It's always best to consult with a qualified electrician or electrical engineer to determine the most appropriate grounding electrode system for a specific application. Now let's talk more about the specifics of ground rods. Ground rods are typically available in several different materials and sizes. The most common materials are copper, copper-clad steel, and galvanized steel. Copper ground rods offer excellent corrosion resistance and conductivity. Copper-clad steel ground rods provide a good balance of strength and corrosion resistance. Galvanized steel ground rods are the least expensive option, but they are also the most susceptible to corrosion. The size of the ground rod is determined by the size of the electrical system being grounded. The NEC specifies the minimum diameter of the ground rod based on the size of the grounding electrode conductor. For example, a number 6 American wire gauge copper grounding electrode conductor requires a ground rod that is at least 0.5 inches or 12.7 millimeters in diameter. The installation of ground rods is relatively simple, but there are a few important considerations. The ground rod must be driven into the ground to a depth of at least 8 feet or 2.4 meters. The top of the ground rod must be flush with or below the surface of the ground. If multiple ground rods are used, they must be spaced at least 6 feet or 1.8 meters apart. The grounding electrode conductor must be connected to the ground rod using approved methods. Approved methods include listed clamps and exothermic welding. Listed clamps are specifically designed for connecting grounding conductors to ground rods. Exothermic welding creates a permanent, low-resistance connection between the grounding conductor and the ground rod. When installing ground rods, it's important to avoid underground utilities such as gas lines, water lines, and electrical cables. Before driving a ground rod, it's always a good idea to call the local utility companies to locate any underground utilities. If underground utilities are present, the ground rod must be relocated to a safe distance. Now let's consider metal underground water pipes. When using a metal underground water pipe as a grounding electrode, it's essential to ensure that the pipe is electrically continuous. Any insulating joints or sections must be bypassed or made electrically continuous using bonding jumpers. Bonding jumpers are conductors that are used to connect two or more metal pots together to create an electrically continuous path. The bonding jumpers must be sized according to the NEC. The point of connection of the grounding electrode conductor to the water pipe must be accessible. This allows for inspection and maintenance of the connection. The water pipe must be in direct contact with the earth for at least 10 feet or 3.0 meters, including any metal well casing bonded to the piping. This ensures that the water pipe is effectively grounded. It's important to note that plastic water pipes cannot be used as grounding electrodes. Plastic is a non-conductor of electricity and cannot provide a grounding path. Now, let's review concrete encased electrodes. Concrete encased electrodes, or U for grounds, are commonly used in new construction. They provide an effective grounding path due to the large surface area in contact with the earth. The electrode must be at least 20 feet or 6.0 meters long and encased in at least 2 inches or 15 millimeters of concrete. The concrete must be in direct contact with the earth. The steel reinforcing bar or rod used for the concrete encased electrode must be at least 0.5 inches or 12.7 millimeters in diameter. The grounding electrode conductor is connected to the reinforcing bar or rod using approved methods. When installing a concrete encased electrode, it's important to ensure that the concrete is properly mixed and placed. The concrete must be free of air pockets and voids. The reinforcing bar or rod must be completely encased in the concrete. Now let's consider plate electrodes. Plate electrodes must have a surface area of at least 2 square feet or 0.186 square meters exposed to the surrounding earth. They are typically made of iron or steel and must be installed below the permanent moisture level. The plate must be buried vertically in the earth. The grounding electrode conductor is connected to the plate using approved methods. When installing a plate electrode, it's important to ensure that the soil is in direct contact with the plate. The soil should be free of rocks and debris. The plate should be buried at a depth that ensures it is below the permanent moisture level. Finally, let's review ring electrodes. A ring electrode is a copper conductor that encircles the building or structure and is buried directly in the earth. The ring must be at least 20 feet or 6.0 meters long and buried at a depth of at least 30 inches or 762 millimeters. The grounding electrode conductor is connected to the ring at an accessible location. When installing a ring electrode, it's important to ensure that the copper conductor is buried at the correct depth. The conductor must be in direct contact with the earth. The ring must completely encircle the building or structure. In summary, Article 250.52 provides a range of options for grounding electrode systems. The selection of the most appropriate system depends on several factors, including soil conditions, local codes, and the type of electrical system being grounded. It's always best to consult with a qualified electrician or electrical engineer to determine the best grounding electrode system for a specific application. Remember that proper grounding is essential for electrical safety. A properly grounded electrical system helps to protect people from electric shock and reduces the risk of fire. Always follow the NEC and local codes when installing and maintaining grounding systems. In addition to the 6 grounding electrode systems listed in 250.52A/6, the NEC also allows for the use of other grounding electrodes under certain conditions. These other grounding electrodes must be approved by the authority having jurisdiction, which is typically the local electrical inspector. The authority having jurisdiction will evaluate the suitability of the other grounding electrode based on its ability to provide a low impedance path to ground. Some examples of other grounding electrodes that may be approved include ground grids, mat electrodes, and chemical ground rods. Ground grids are typically used for large electrical systems such as substations and power plants. They consist of a network of interconnected conductors that are buried in the earth. Mat electrodes are similar to plate electrodes, but they are larger and have a greater surface area. They are typically used in areas where the soil is very dry or rocky. Chemical ground rods are ground rods that are filled with chemicals that are designed to improve their conductivity. They are typically used in areas where the soil is highly resistive. When selecting a grounding electrode system, it's important to consider the long-term performance of the electrode. Some grounding electrodes, such as galvanized steel ground rods, are more susceptible to corrosion than others. Over time, corrosion can increase the resistance of the grounding electrode, which can reduce its effectiveness. It's important to inspect grounding electrodes regularly and replace them if they show signs of corrosion or damage. The NEC also specifies the size of the grounding electrode conductor. The size of the grounding electrode conductor is based on the size of the service entrance conductors. The larger the service entrance conductors, the larger the grounding electrode conductor must be. The grounding electrode conductor must be made of copper or aluminum. It must be protected from physical damage. The grounding electrode conductor must be connected to the grounding electrode using approved methods. The NEC also requires that all metal parts of the electrical system be bonded together. Bonding is the process of connecting all metal parts of the electrical system together to create an electrically continuous path. This helps to prevent voltage differences between metal parts, which can cause electric shock. The bonding conductors must be sized according to the NEC. They must be made of copper or aluminum. They must be protected from physical damage. The bonding conductors must be connected to the metal parts using approved methods. In addition to the requirements for grounding and bonding, the NEC also specifies requirements for ground fault protection. Ground fault protection is designed to protect people from electric shock in the event of a ground fault. A ground fault occurs when a live conductor comes into contact with a grounded metal part. Ground fault protection devices, such as ground fault circuit interrupters or GFCIs, are designed to detect ground faults and interrupt the flow of electricity. GFCIs are typically required in bathrooms, kitchens, and other wet locations. They are also required for outdoor receptacles and for receptacles that serve swimming pools and spas. Ground fault protection is an important safety feature that can help to prevent electric shock. It's important to test GFCIs regularly to ensure that they are working properly. The NEC is a complex and comprehensive document. It's important to consult with a qualified electrician or electrical engineer to ensure that electrical systems are installed and maintained in accordance with the NEC. Proper grounding, bonding, and ground fault protection are essential for electrical safety. Always follow the NEC and local codes when working with electricity. Electrical work can be dangerous. It's important to take precautions to protect yourself from electric shock. Always turn off the power before working on electrical circuits. Use insulated tools. Wear rubber gloves and safety glasses. If you are not qualified to work on electrical circuits, hire a qualified electrician. Electrical safety is everyone's responsibility. By following the NEC and taking precautions, we can help to prevent electric shock and fires. Remember, when it comes to electrical installations, safety is paramount. Always prioritize safety and consult with qualified professionals when needed. This ensures that electrical systems are not only functional but also safe for everyone. Understanding and adhering to the NEC guidelines is crucial for maintaining a safe electrical environment. So, whether you're dealing with ground rods, water pipes, or any other grounding electrode system, always prioritize safety and compliance with the electrical code. This helps to protect lives and property from the hazards of electricity.